Welcome to Immersive Reality. We are here to prove the case for augmented and virtual reality and immersive technologies in business, entertainment, and marketing. I'm your co-host Dave Mason, founder of Uncommon, an agency empowering retail brands and institutions with the ability to deliver immersive experiences to their audiences through augmented reality and interactive installations.
My name's Bradley Smith, co-host of Immersive Reality and founder of AVO, software to create, manage, and measure augmented reality marketing campaigns. Dave and I have a lot of war stories to share, so buckle up and get ready to immerse yourself. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Bradley, and on this episode of Immersive Reality, we're going to be talking about how you engage with an audience through content. And my first question here for Dave is, why should people create content in augmented reality?
One of the reasons that people should be looking at augmented reality as a way to engage with an audience is just the aspect of visualization. We've seen phones kind of go through this phase of being able to see the world. You could always pull out your phone and take a picture and it could see it and save that picture. But now we're getting to a point where the phone can do more than see. It can understand. It can understand where the floors are. It knows where the walls are. And then put content into your world that can only be seen through the phone. A lot of people have smartphones now. And because you're able to see and understand the world, you can now put content into their world that they can interact with. Almost as good as putting a physical object in the space. Now, one of the challenges to that is what kind of content you actually make. What are you putting in the space for the user to interact with? Because if you're just throwing something in there for the sake of doing it, it's going to fall flat. So it's important to understand who the end user is and why they would be using that. When it works really well, you get a really good response from the end user. And when you get a good response from the end user, they tend to share things. And then you get into this element of them sharing it with somebody else. And it becomes a shared experience. And by creating a shared experience, you're creating this virality. People want to show what they're experiencing because it's something so novel, but yet it's very familiar because they understand their space. And seeing something new in their space is always exciting. It's kind of like getting a new piece of furniture or a new TV or something like that. It's like you want to show people what you have in your space.
And for visualization, as you're talking about that, is that primarily 3D models, face filters? I mean, like, what kind of content specifically lends itself to visualization?
The 3D models are really powerful because you can put something in someone's room and they can not physically see it. They can virtually see it, but it's like it's actually there. And they can move it around. They can see it at scale. They can see what it's going to look like before they buy it. And it creates this almost retail store experience right inside of somebody's living room.
And another thing that I think people maybe don't understand is with the 3D models, how in-depth they can become. We were playing around with a 3D model of a house this week, and you could zoom all the way into, living room, the kitchen, bedroom 1, 2, 3, the stairs. So, and we'll get into this a little bit later in the show, but, if you're looking through a real estate magazine, you're only going to be able to see maybe 4 or 5 pictures of the house. But if there's a 3D model and AR that's attached to that page, all of a sudden now you're getting a whole tour of really detailed experience of the house. And, I think that is a great case for visualization. And then usually that lends itself to, like you said, a 3D model. But going into virality, the most viral AR experiences I've seen so far definitely lend itself to face filters, specifically on Instagram. And I don't know if you saw the one where it's like a thing on top of on the head, and it's like pick your character, and it's like Disney characters and stuff like that. I was talking to a company a couple weeks ago, and they created one of those, and it went viral. And it's crazy to talk to these brands who haven't really experimented with face filters before on Instagram, and then they start dabbling their feet in, and the response is incredible. I mean, some of these face filters go absolutely viral.
Yeah, I think the face filters are really cool because it simplifies what it is. I mean, at its core, the face filter was like the beginning of augmented reality for a lot of people. It was the first time that they ever saw it, they ever experienced it. What was so cool about face filters and what's cool about them still today is that people didn't really have this learning curve for a face filter. It was just point the camera at your face and something happened. They didn't have to work for it. And I think that's what's really important when you're thinking about content in AR. Don't make people work for it. Don't make your end user struggle to get there.
And now we're seeing brands really start to create face filters and take it from, kind of this fun novelty branding experience to a more branding social impact experience, like with BLM and with COVID. I've seen brands step up and teach people how to wear masks and teach people how to wash their hands and, the 3Ps and stuff like that using face filters. So it's fun to see the evolution of filters go from kind of maybe this fun, wacky, media type to now brands and organizations are starting to get used to it and being able to tell stories that have a social impact and be able to provide a lot more value than just simply having some, fun dog ears.
Yeah, and I think that signals a longer viewed trend, right? We're going to see this happen more and more often because it's become kind of interweaved with social media now. It's not enough just to have pictures on your Instagram feed. Like, you have to have a filter. You have to have content in AR. You have to have a way for people to educate, interact, learn through these mediums. And when brands and institutions and organizations start using them for things like, here's how to wear a mask, you know that it's worked well enough for the novel filter that people are going to get it when they need to learn about something that's actually important, right? It's like the dog face, the Snapchat filter with the doggy tongue and the ears and everything was great for the past 3 or 4 years, 5 years. I feel like that thing's been around forever. But people are so used to it now, people get it now, that we can start to evolve that content into something that has more meaning.
And I think that's the number one thing that differentiates this type of content as opposed to other content is that it's interactive and that it is immersive. And with face filters and 3D models and these other AR formats, you're really having to engage with the experience. You're not getting the full effect until you start rotating, zooming in and out of the model, putting the face filters on, opening up your mouth, getting these experiences. I mean, you have to interact with the AR content in order to get the best experience out of that, which in turn creates a much longer engagement and retention period because, again, you have to engage with the content when it comes to AR as opposed to obviously a video or pictures or some of these other media formats.
Yeah, completely agree with that. It's like you create depth, not breadth, taking a deep dive into something specific and letting the user wander through that world. And by doing that, they tend to dwell longer. And we've seen that. Anytime we've done an augmented reality or virtual reality experience, our user engagement time, our average time for a single experience is around 2.5 minutes. And I think that's really fascinating considering that most content now, especially if you're doing like a YouTube pre-roll, we're told that you have to keep that under 6 seconds. You have to tell a story inside of 6 seconds. That, like, the challenge is remarkable. It's been done, and it's been done well a number of times. But you're also trying to create, a short ad for as many people as you possibly can over this huge platform in multiple places. And maybe you have like 30 different edits of the same piece of content. You have a 60, a 30, a 15, a 6, and 500 3-second edits and stuff like that. So there's people scrolling through whatever feed. They just happen to catch the story. And it's painful. It's like you're creating all of this stuff to spread out over all these places. It's different with AR.
Yeah, and I think another differentiator with AR content is social proof, where you're having your customers or the end users engage with this content. And a lot of times they're sharing those experiences with their friends and family. So, because this content is immersive and interactive, and you're engaging with these brands' face filters, specifically face filters, 9 times out of 10, you're sharing that content on your social media. So when you have these branded face filters, and for whatever specific cause, or maybe it's a product reveal, or maybe you're working with some influencer, or whatever the case may be, people, your customers, audiences, they are sharing your branded face filters with all of their friends and family on social media. And obviously, you can't do that again with video or pictures or text or, a lot of these other media formats, because it's not interactive and you're not using the content to create your own experiences. Where with AR, since it is all immersive and interactive, people are able to take these experiences, make them their own, and then blast it off to all of their friends and family through social media.
Yeah, and once their friends see that, then typically people will also follow that engagement. We've seen that happen where you put something, say it's a Snapchat filter. One person uses it, they share it, and then the geniuses at Snapchat decided to put a button on a shareable face filter that says, try this lens, try it out for yourself. And so you can download it and try it yourself. So it's sort of built in a way that it can create this virality and social proof element. So no matter what you put out there, as long as you've done a good job of making sure that your core audience is going to get it, and it's something that they can easily engage with, then they're gonna organically start to share that, and you'll see that return come back exponentially than if you were trying to make 30,000 different edits of a single video for all the different platforms.
Right. And I think one of the companies who really understand how AR can differentiate their storytelling and product detail is Bullfrog Spas. They have invested a ton into AR and VR because they understand that their purchases are normally usually only once, maybe twice in a lifetime, selling these high quality hot tubs. That's not going to be a purchase every other year. It's usually maybe once every 10 years. And for them, they've invested heavily in AR because it allows you to place your customizable hot tub in your backyard or in your massive house if you have that big of a house, or wherever it is on the patio. So for them, they've done a really, really great job of creating your hot tub, customizing the jets, customizing the colors, customizing the material. And as you're customizing the hot tub on the website, it kicks you out a 3D model of the specific hot tub that you just created. So obviously then you have this hot tub that you just created, you invested your time into it. Now you take it out, you walk it out to your patio, you're placing it, you're sizing it, resizing it, turning it, getting it in the location, the position that you want it to be in. And then 9 times out of 10, you're going to take a picture of it and share it to the other decision maker in the household to say, hey, how cool would it be if this or that, or maybe we change the color, or maybe we change the material or the jets or whatever it may be. And that's where it creates this longer engagement, because you're buying into the process and then you're able to visualize that product. And Bullfrog Spas, I've chatted to them and they are investing only more in this side of things because they're seeing the returns of everything that you mentioned, Dave. And it is just really cool to see these brands and these organizations be able to get it when a lot of other organizations, maybe think that it's still a little bit too soon for AR, or maybe they're not investing the capital, time, and resources into AR content because it is a big initial investment to get into AR, and maybe you need a department depending on your organization. And then the fear of how do you create content that engages an audience? Because obviously if you go through all of the pain of setting up something new and no one engages, is probably not going to last that long in an organization. And, I know, Dave, obviously you work a ton with companies being an agency, and I'm sure they ask that question quite a bit of how are we going to create this content that engages our audience?
They do, yeah. It's a really good point, and I think there's two differences, or there is a difference here. There's the side of it from we need a sales tool or a marketing tool. So that's what Bullfrog Spas is doing, is they're investing in the infrastructure, and that's a tried and true business practice. Invest in infrastructure, build it, and go sell it. So that's what they're doing with their AR, and they're creating a really good experience around it. On the other side of that, you have the marketer, you have the ad sales, where you're trying to create these shorter term experiences and trying to build these things that people can interact with in a very short amount of time, but still get that impact, that experiential moment. In that sense, when we're trying to create content for the short form versus investing in the infrastructure side, it's a lot of small 3D models. It's very lightweight. It's very easy to digest content. We're not building, this custom app for somebody to have to test and debug and rebuild and maintain and all this other stuff. It's not that hard. What we can do is go in and use something like an existing platform, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and build content in those platforms for the users that are already on those platforms. So that's how we're thinking about, when we go to create content that engage with the audience, what audience are we engaging in? Are we engaging in the audience where we're trying to build a sales tool? Or are we engaging with the audience where we're trying to sell something like an experience or a branded moment? Those are two very different things. We really try to focus on what are we creating, how are we creating it, and where does the content live? So I think it's really important to think about how you're going to use AR in a frictionless experience. Something like web AR, Instagram, Snapchat, places where people already are, the platforms that they're already using, and it really makes it easy to engage with the audience.
And I think that's probably the most important thing to think through when you're creating your ARs, where this AR is going to live. And a lot of organizations, not as much anymore, because I think people have been burned enough times that they realize creating my own app just to get people to view our AR probably isn't the best move. And now with web AR coming, which makes it so much easier, you don't have to download an app. You just type in a URL to get the AR experience. Or like you mentioned, with these social media companies integrating the camera more and more and more into their overall experience, placing the AR in either A, a frictionless experience like web AR where you don't have to download an app, or B, an application that already has all of the audience that you want, is so important. But I still see organizations come to us and they want their own app, or they want to white label an app. And I don't know if these companies just haven't experienced an application before and the horrors that come with an app. A, getting someone to download an app. B, the maintenance of an application, and just the ongoing troubles of an application, especially when you are not a tech company, like say, some brand or some CPG brand or something like that. They don't have a whole tech department, a whole IT department to maintain an application. So then you have these large agency fees if that's something that you really want to do. And I don't know if it's just a pride thing or not, but it's like, look, guys, let's just hook you up with a custom white labeled URL, hook it into one of these platforms, and none of your audience has to download an application to view the AR that you just created.
Yeah, I think a lot of people got burned in the app bubble, right? It was
a lot.
It was, hey, we need to build an app. Hey, we need our own app. Hey, everybody wanted to build their own app. And it was that sort of knee-jerk reaction, kind of like what we've seen a little bit in AR, where it was like, hey, we need to do AR. Hey, we need to do AR. But it was, hold on, press the pause button. Why do we need an app? Nobody really asked the question. People just assumed they needed it. And then when they went to do it, they didn't have a purpose for it. and then they spent money on it and it was useless and it died, and they, bad taste was left in their mouth over this whole app thing. And I think a lot of people, when they hear the term AR, they've seen AR in, they've seen Apple showcase AR through a mobile device, mostly through apps. They've seen VR headsets, which require all this expensive hardware. They've seen this stuff in a format that is for a power user and not for a generic user. And so when they hear AR, they tie it to this crazy expensive thing, but it doesn't have to be that. If you want to engage with an audience, keep it light, keep it easy. The content does not have to be hard. The content doesn't have to be overdone. It just has to apply to your audience. And I think that's the easiest way any business can actually integrate AR, is just think about your user, think about how you want to use it. Are you using it like Bullfrog Spas to create this marketing and sales tool, or are you trying to do something that engages an audience from a marketing point of view? So that's the easiest way to integrate AR, is just think about your end user and what kind of content they engage with.
And then I think that's how you make sure the audience engages, right? Is if you're not tying it to download an app to experience the AR, if you're making it frictionless for your audience, or you're meeting them in the middle and placing the AR that you want them to engage with where they already are, such as the social channels, that's going to make it the easiest and best way possible to ensure that the audience will engage with the AR that you just created. And I think tying the AR to the story or the product is obviously really important as well, and ensuring that it helps tell the story and doesn't take it on a weird left or right turn. Again, it doesn't need to be this elaborate AR experience in order for AR to do what it can do, which is the visualization, the virality, the branding, social impact, everything we went over earlier. And going back into the luxury house example that I gave in the magazine, you get to see a 3D model of the house, interact with it, zoom all the way into every floor, take a picture with it, share it with, husband, wife, whoever else is a decision maker in the household. And that is where I think AR can really shine. And I think that's one of the things that we need to get across as an industry and as an organization, is that the small things can make a massive impact. You don't need to invest thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on your own app, a lot of content, an elaborate experience in order to get the value out of AR. You can just do something as easy as, hey, let's place a 3D model of this luxury house on the magazine that we're sending out, in order just to help people visualize and understand if this house would be something that they want to take a house tour of.
Yeah, it can be very achievable. It can be something that's lightweight. It can be something that people can interact with. It can be affordable. It doesn't have to be overbearing. It just takes time to understand what's possible, understanding who your audience is, and figuring out how to get the content in the hands of your audience. Next time on Immersive Reality, we're going to take a deeper dive into understanding how we actually create content for AR. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and check us out wherever you get your podcasts. That's it for this episode of Immersive Reality.